I would say some of the difficulties that I dealt with in my early life were really because I had severe dyslexia.
Yes.
I wasn't even able to read until like fourth grade, and the reading that I could do was terrible. If it was my turn to read in class, I would skip off to the bathroom so I wouldn't have to read out loud because I didn't want
I
anyone to
see.
hear me stuttering. That's another reason why, I didn't want to do any extra education. I wanted to get right into the workforce. I couldn't stand studying. I couldn't stand school. It just wasn't for me. So for me to go take a big test, this was going to be a real challenge for me. And it was outside of what I knew. I knew automotive, so I was passing those certification tests. I'd fail them and then finally pass them.
Me
So I
too.
had to go take this really big test.
Hey, adventurers! Welcome to the Academy for Adventurers podcast. I'm your host, your adventure coach, Mauro Schiavo, and today we have a very special guest. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today. Really appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna go ahead and read your bio so our audience can get to know you a little bit better. So,
Excellent.
David is a licensed life insurance agent, entrepreneur, and founder of USA Wealth Builders. He helps families, homeowners, and business owners eliminate debt, protect their income, and build long-term tax advantage wealth strategies focused on stability, freedom, and legacy. Raised by a single mother in the Navy and overcoming learning disabilities and dyslexia, David developed a deep belief in discipline, perseverance, and personal responsibility. He strongly believes that hard times create strong men, while comfort and dependency weaken people over time. Today, David is on a mission to help families reclaim control of their financial future through practical financial education and modern systems. He teaches clients how to pay off their debt faster, build guaranteed retirement income, and establish what he calls a family banking system using the power of compound interest. Known for his direct communication style and conviction driven message, David combines timeless values with practical financial strategies to help people become stronger, more prepared, and more financially independent in an uncertain world. What a mission, David! Super
Yeah, man.
cool.
Appreciate that. What a great bio.
What a great life. So, tell me a little bit about what it was like being raised by a single mother in the Navy, no less, and how it was moving from school to school in your childhood.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll take you back to 1979. September 28th, 1979. I was born in New Orleans to a single mother. She's a dental technician in the Navy. And, my biological father was a little bit older than her and just decided that he did not want to raise another family. So she got stationed from New Orleans right over to Panama, straight out of the country. At that time, the Navy, the U.S. controlled the Panama Canal, and we moved to Rodman, the Rodman base there in Panama, and probably till about 4 years old, it was just me and my mom. My mom remarried someone else in the Navy. My stepdad, he's adopted me. He's my father, and I grew up in a military family. So when you're in a military family, you don't stick around too long. And especially in the Navy, it's usually 6 months. Every 6 months, you're in a new school, in a new area. So I think by 4 years old, we were moving back to the States, moving to Virginia, Norfolk, since they're in the Navy. That's one of the largest ports in the United States is Norfolk. And my dad was always stationed on a ship. So he'd go out to sea for 6 months at a time, and then it would just be me and my mom. Okay, and then my mom ended up getting pregnant and having my sister, which is about 4 years younger than me, and just popping around from school to school until I was in 10th grade. It was a challenge. You hoped that your mom or dad got orders and stationed during the school year. That way you could meet new friends day one. If you got switched or stationed during the summer, it was the worst because
Mm.
making friends when you don't have school is a little bit more difficult. And I remember years where we got transferred over in the summertime and it was just a drag, right, to make friends. And then
Mm.
years that we got stationed during the school year, I mean, I'd go to school and then on the way home there would be a crowd of kids behind me following me home from school because I made a bunch of new friends and this is the new kid. So it's got its pros and cons. It's a little bit scary, having to go meet a whole bunch of new kids when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, even 13 years old. But it's also good too because it builds a level of confidence to go talk to anybody. And if you're going to be in business or you're going to be in sales, you have to be okay and comfortable with talking to strangers. Most people aren't because most people were raised don't talk to strangers, right? Don't talk to strangers. So it's not comfortable for most people. But when you're a military kid, you're going to be changing up, going to different schools every 6 months, every year. So you kind of got to get used to it. It's not the end of the world. And when you're a little kid, it's just the script is, hey, my name's David. You want to come out and play, right? Like when you're a kid, and then as you get older, it just gets a little bit different. But it just gives you the ability to have confidence because you've done it a couple times, so you're confident in going and doing it, right?
Yeah.
It does stink to leave everything behind, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
One of the things that we like to talk about are the adventures that we have in life and business. And I imagine that one of the pros is you got to see a lot of different places growing up. You got to live in a lot of, well, I don't want to assume. Did you get to live in on many different states when you were growing
Yeah,
up?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What were
Yep.
some of the states that you got to live in and experience? And then what was your
We
favorite one?
Yeah, so Louisiana, New Orleans, Mississippi, Virginia, Florida. We a lot of times
Mm.
would always go back to Virginia because Virginia is like that big port. So
I
let's
see.
say you went to Panama, you go to Virginia. You went to New Orleans, you go back to Virginia. You go to
Okay.
Florida, you go back to Virginia. It just seems like you always went back to Virginia
So there's a
because
big naval base there.
huge, huge.
Huge.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge naval base in Norfolk, Virginia. So we always went back to Norfolk. My parents were always on the East Coast. Now San Diego has a big one as well, but the biggest one in the U.S. is in Norfolk, Virginia. So we always end up going back there. My dad, my mom ended up getting out of the military and going back to college, becoming an accountant, and my dad was what you call a QMC. It's called the quartermaster. He basically is the person that's in charge of navigating the boat and or the ship. And he spent most of his time as a QMC and a quartermaster in the Navy. And for a little while, he was a company commander in Orlando, where you would go into basic training, and the guy that was kind of like the drill sergeant in the Army in the Navy, it's called a company commander.
So being raised in a military family, I've had the honor and privilege to have other former Marines, former Army, now Navy, well, family Navy. Did you ever consider going into the military yourself?
Yeah, I went to MEPS. I did the whole thing. I was going with two other friends. They have like a buddy system. If you go in together, you automatically bump up in rank. So it was cool. We were all going to go together, and we were going to go into the army. And I was working as a mechanic part time in high school. And I think at the time I was going to go into the army. I believe they told me like after basic training, my pay was going to be like $12,000 a year. This was in 1998, and I was already working as a mechanic part time. and like full time on the weekends, and I was making like 30 grand a year in high school.
No
And I was like,
brainer.
man,
That's a
I don't
no
know if I'm
brainer.
gonna go. Yeah, and those guys that I was going in with, they went into the infantry. They were 101st Airborne Infantry, and they went to they went to Afghanistan directly after 9/11. Before 9/11, they were in Kosovo handling a dispute in Kosovo. So they were always in some kind of type of conflict. Those guys. So I'm kind of, it's one of the big regrets in my life for not serving our country. It
Mm,
is also a relief that I didn't go, because a couple of the guys that I was going to go with have some big time PTSD.
yeah, we had another BNI member on here as well, and to remind our audience, BNI is Business Networking International, and he shared that he has his own personal struggles. I actually would love to connect you with him. I think you guys would hit it off quite well. But he also talked a little bit about that on the show, and yeah, there is a I have a huge respect for anyone and everyone that served in the military, because one of the things that we like to talk about here are how our battles and challenges shape us, and the scars that we carry, whether if they're physical, emotional, or otherwise. And going into business, it's not a fair comparison at all to PTSD, but business does have its challenges. And so tell me a little bit about how did you bridge the gap between working as a mechanic in high school and then jumping into the financial realm? Like, how did that adventure start? Like, how did you jump into it, man? Because that's a quite a shift. It's quite a
What
shift.
an adventure. You ready to go
Yeah.
for an adventure? All right, let's
I'm
buckle
always,
up.
dude, you want to go now? Let's go. Let's stop the
We're
podcast.
going.
Let's go, dude.
We're going, man.
Let's go.
This isn't just an adventure. This is a roller coaster that we're going on
Oh
here.
man. Buckle
So
up.
yeah, like I said, MEPS. I went through MEPS. I did the whole thing, and I just decided I'm going to stay in the automotive world. I went to high school in Coral Springs, Florida. I went to high school called um, JP Taravella, and I graduated in '98. And I also went to a vocational school part time while I was in high school. I went to Atlantic Votech, and they had a great automotive program there. So I went there in the morning, and then the afternoon I went to high school. And I just was really into cars. So
Mm.
after high school, I just went right into the workforce. I was working at like a Firestone there in Coral Springs, and then school ended, and I figured, you know what, I want to work on one brand. So I went and got a job with a Nissan dealer that was there in Coral Springs. They have a Coral Springs Auto Mall. I went and
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
job there, and I worked on Nissans for I think about 3 years there. Really met some great people. Really, I just loved getting up to go to work and do that. I thought it was just amazing that I was getting paid to work on cars. I wasn't really good at it yet.
Yeah.
Wasn't like a top tier mechanic. It takes about 5 6 years of doing that constantly till you're really good. And then I would say around 2001, maybe a little after 2001. It was right after the Twin Towers went down. So it was probably like December of 2021. I left Nissan and went to a Lexus dealership. And by this time, I was a pretty good technician. I had become what's called a AFC master technician. You passed all these certification tests, and now you're like top level. And I was making really good money doing this. And I don't know if you know this, but auto, automotive technicians, they don't get paid like a salary. They don't get paid a salary. They don't get paid hourly. They get paid per job that they do. So
Ah, interesting.
that's what really attracted me to the automotive world is the more work you do, the more money you make.
Mm.
And let's just imagine that you're going to do a dashboard on a car. right? You got to take out this whole dashboard, drop the steering wheel, all this stuff. Well, if that dashboard to put a new dashboard in, take the old one out and put a new one in, if it takes you 12 hours to do, you only get paid what it pays. So let's say the job pays 5 hours. If you do it in 12, you still get paid
You
five
still get
hours.
paid 5 hours
If
of
you
labor.
if you do it in one, you still get paid
You
five
still get paid
hours.
the 5 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, so I became really proficient, right? Really
Yeah.
proficient, and I was doing very well. I was doing so well that I was literally making money while I slept, and that was kind of my goal.
Mm.
So I did that. I did that until 2011. Yeah, 2011. I
Okay.
was 31. I was 31, and I was in a shop. I was in a shop, and I was sweating, and I was just sick and tired of it. I had owned a shop on my own.
Oh,
I
you
was working
did?
for I worked for Lexus for a while, and then I said, you know what? The heck with this. I'm going to do it on my own. I bought an automotive franchise, put lifts in
Wow.
there, hired technicians, did the whole thing myself for like 1 year, and it was just way too. It wasn't a fit for me. I just kind of lived at that shop. Hurricane came through in South Florida called Hurricane Wilma in 2025, I think,
I
or
remember
no,
that.
2000, not 2025, 2005.
2005.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2005. It
I
was like
remember that
right
one.
around Halloween. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it knocked out the power to the shop. There was all kinds of glass blown in. I couldn't even work on cars for like 2 months there. So
Oh, yikes.
I didn't have the reserves to just not make money for 2 months. I wrapped it up. I got rid of the shop, kind of like rolled it over to another franchisee, and went back to work. And you know, I guess about 6 years later, I'm working at a Lexus dealer, and it's just like, it's 2011. Enough is enough. I've got three little kids at home, and I always said to myself, what am I gonna do when I grow up? But I'm 31 at this point, and I'm still like working on cars. I'm like, this isn't what I wanted to do when I grow up. Uh, but everybody there in that world got kind of stuck in there because you're making so much money. You loved cars, you're making so much money. Now it's your job, and you're like, man, I'm just going to stay with it because I know how to do it. But the hours were getting longer and longer. You would go into work at 7 a.m. You wouldn't get out to work till 7 p.m. They didn't want you leaving for lunch. When I first got into the business, it was like 8 to 5. You didn't work Saturdays or Sundays. And then um, later on in the business, it was like, hey, you're going to work every other Saturday, and then it's only going to be till 12 o'clock. And then it was, you're going to work every Saturday, and it's going to be till 5 o'clock. And then the straw is,
Yeah.
you're going to work Sundays. So it was like this
That's it.
rotating schedule. You had to work the weekends. I had these little kids that were in sports. I wanted to be there. And one day I was just hot and sweaty. I remember it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. My socks where you had sweat in them. I said, enough's enough. And um, I think I was, I think the Phillies were in the World Series, and I was texting with my brother-in-law about the about the baseball game. I
Mm.
said, "There's got to be a better way." He's like, "Why don't you come work with me?" And I said,
Mm.
"Don't I have to go to college to do what you do?" He's like, "Well, not really. You got to pass the really, really hard tests, and if you can pass the hard tests, then you can do what I do." And he was a stockbroker, so I had to go take these tests called Series 7 tests, and he was a commodities broker too, and a Series 3. So I had to take these tests.
David, can we pause there for a moment? I
Yeah.
want to pause for a reason. So, one of the things that we talk about on the podcast is we talk about the call to adventure. And it is a mythological theme. Have you ever heard of the call to adventure?
No, I haven't.
So it's become popular now. There are some figures in the psychological world, figures like Jordan Peterson, but the call to adventure was popularized by a man named Joseph Campbell, and he wrote several books on myth and adventure, and he tied it to what we face in modern times. Okay, so he pulls wisdom from ancient Greek stories, even from the Christian scriptures, from the Bible, and even from other mythologies. And what you just described to me was what is often referred to as the call to adventure. It's you're you're living your life and circumstances, you're comfortable, right? Like you've got a job, you've got a family, like, but there's this unease. Like, you're like, is this it? Right? Like, because
Your
you
calling. You're
could,
not living your calling,
you're right,
your
and
true
you could,
purpose.
and people live in that all the time. We all do. But every now and then there's a call. And the call to adventure is there's this unexpected circumstance that shows up. For you, it was that conversation with your brother, and you had to make a choice. Am I going to answer this call or not? Am I going to stay in the Shire? Am I going to stay comfortable, to use the metaphor from Lord of the Rings? Or am I going to go on this adventure? Am I going to answer the call and see where it takes me? So you
Yeah.
took the call. All right. I like to
I was
emphasize
looking
that.
for it. I
Yeah.
was looking for
You
it
were
though, because
looking for the call.
it was
Yeah.
in the back of my head that there's got to be a better way. Now, I
Mm,
want to let you know, I got married around the time I owned that shop.
mm.
I got married in 2026, so that I'm kind of closing up the shop right around the time I'm getting married. Okay, and my wife never worked a day in her life. I've always kept her at home. I literally we got pregnant, um, you know, 2007, right after, or we got pregnant immediately in 2006, and we had our first child in
In
2007.
2007.
Boom, yeah. And so she's always been a stay-at-home mother. So she had her first child. 2 years later, another child. Three, and then 2 years after that, the next child. So I had three boys, all 2 years apart. And I'm sitting in 2011 inside a Lexus GS350. If you can just imagine, it's
Yeah.
probably a brand new 2011. It's got a water leak coming in through the sunroof or something because the carpets are soaked. So I've got all the interior out of it. So I'm sitting on the bare metal. My hand is bleeding because I cut it on the bottom of a
Mm,
chair that was really razor blade. It's soaking. I'm soaking with sweat because I'm so hot.
mm.
And I text my brother-in-law about the Phillies and say, "There's got to be a better way." And he said, "Come work
Be a
for me.
better way.
You got to
Yeah.
pass this really hard test."
Yeah.
Well, you said you. I don't know. I think you said it in my bio. Some of the I would say some of the difficulties that I dealt with in my early life were really because I had severe dyslexia.
Yes.
I wasn't even able to read until like fourth grade, and the reading that I could do was terrible. I if it was my turn to read in class, I would skip off to the bathroom so I wouldn't have to read out loud because I didn't want
I
anyone to
see.
hear me stuttering. So that's another reason why I didn't want to do any extra education. I wanted to get right into the workforce. I couldn't stand studying. I couldn't stand school. It just wasn't for me. So for me to go take a big test, this was going to be a real challenge for me. And it was outside of what I knew. I knew automotive, so I was passing those certification tests. I'd fail them and then finally pass them.
You'd
So I
retake
had to
him.
go take this really big test, and you know, 2011, the internet's not really a big thing just yet. I mean, some people are doing emails, but there's no like social media going on yet in 2011. I think the first iPhone is just coming out right around this
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I gotta study the old-fashioned way with flashcards, and this test is called the Series 7. It's not an easy test. It's a very difficult test, and there's a lot of things that you have to memorize in it.
Mm,
So lo and behold, I passed both of these tests. I fail them the first time. The second time I pass them. So I'm studying for these tests when my kids go to sleep. So around 9 p.m. till about 4 a.m. I'm studying in those hours every day for like 2 months. I'm putting like a thousand hours of study time
were
in.
you still working?
Yeah, I'm working full
So
time.
you were burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
going to work at 7 a.m.
Wow.
I'm coming home at 7 p.m. I'm hanging out with the family for dinner and then playing with the kids, putting them to bed at 9. At 9, I'm hitting the books and and I'm learning and I'm studying for this test and I'm doing this till 4 a.m. like every night. so that
That's
I
another
can
point of
memorize this.
emphasis because men need to understand, since I'm going to talk to the men in the audience for a moment here, men need to understand that part of the call to adventure is that it's not just all fun and dandy. Like there's legit sacrifices that need to be made because when you're trying to break out of your current level of comfort, it doesn't matter what level you're at, it's going to be uncomfortable. Even if you're someone that you're just having struggles like getting out of your room because you don't have the communication skills to make a friend. Doesn't matter what level you're at, it's always going to be uncomfortable. Even if you look at someone like David and you say, well, wow, but David had a family, David had a job, he had a home, he was married, like, but it's still uncomfortable. You still have to make sacrifices regardless of where you think you are at. I want to emphasize that because that's something that a lot of people don't think about. That it's like they think, oh, it's just me, I'm the only one that has discomfort. No, it's everybody. Everyone has to pay a price to aspire to greater heights.
Pain of discipline is much easier to deal with than the pain of regret.
Mm.
The pain of discipline is much easier to deal with than the pain of regret. Okay, so I already know what it looks like to be an auto mechanic. I already know what it looks like to be an auto technician at the highest level. Okay, so that's I understand it. I'm not scared to go trying something new. You mean you're gonna tell me I'm gonna go sit in an office and make some phone calls and wear a white collared shirt with a tie in the air conditioning? Sign me up. I think it's gonna be perfect. So I sacrifice
Yeah.
hours and hours to make this happen,
Yeah.
and I pass that test, and as soon as I pass that test, I go to work for my brother-in-law, and I don't really know what he does. I just know that he's a stockbroker. Stockbrokers are rich, right? So I'm gonna go be rich. That's what I figured. And come to find out, these guys are basically telemarketers. They're on the phone, dialing the phone 500 times a day, making $500 a day, pitching people um, a stock or pitching people a commodity. And they're like, hey, learn this script and call these phone numbers. I'm like, learn the script and call these phone numbers. That's all you do? Like, that's all you do. I remember the first day I never like did any type of sales like that. So I was an auto mechanic. So the first day I was feeling like sick to my stomach, like I wanted to vomit, but I didn't know why. I was so uncomfortable that I was sick to my stomach, but I didn't realize that it was because of the phone, because I was so wired to do the job. Like I was so disciplined and wired that I didn't have the fear of picking up the phone and doing that. But what was happening, I was feeling sick with emotion because I was doing something that I wasn't wired to do. My parents, like most people's parents, told them, don't talk to strangers, don't be rude on the phone. And when you're doing this person has all this confidence in the world, and he's like proverbially telling the person on the other end to do things. He's telling them to
Yeah.
do things, and it's
Yeah.
like, isn't that rude? Am I supposed to do that? Like, but
Interesting.
what they're doing is they're posturing and they're controlling the conversation, and that's what good salespeople do, especially over the phone. They have posture. They control that conversation. You can't make a sale unless you control that conversation. So I'm
Mm.
I get to the firm and I start doing this. After a couple of days, I don't feel sick anymore, and I'm making those dials day in and day out, right? And they told me, hey, the key to success is 500 dials a day. You get 500 dials a day, you'll start getting some deals. Once you get some deals, you'll make some money. It's eat what you kill. You don't get paid until you make a sale, right? So
Now, I want to make a connection
yeah,
because I think it's an important connection. You were already used to that because you were paid by job. So when you were working on the cars, at least you were used to that. Some people are not used to that because if you're used to getting a salary, for example, and you're used to just getting your check every 2 weeks, transitioning from that to having to get paid until you close the deal, that is a difficult transition for many. And I think that's the reason why many never start in business because they're scared of losing that security. But one of the advantages that you had is you were already used to it. Well, if it takes me 12 hours to finish this car, I'm not going to get paid until I finish. So that was
Right.
an advantage you had by transitioning into this space. You were already used to it. It's like, well, I don't eat unless I kill, that helped you. I imagine that was a help.
I was always 100% commission. So even in the
Mm-hmm.
automotive world, I was 100% commission.
Yeah,
The thing is, in the automotive world, if there's no customers that day, you still have to sit there by your toolbox and wait for a job. You can't go home. Like the even though you're on flat rate, you're still a W-2 employee. You have to sit there and wait until the shop closes. So even though you're not getting paid, you have to sit there and
you
do
can't
nothing.
leave. Yeah.
You can't leave. You can't leave. So that's like when that uh, um, when when there's a lot of work, you got to bust your butt to get as much of that work as you can, because it may be famine the next day. It's feast or famine in those automotive shops sometimes, So yeah, I always did work commission. That didn't scare me. That that allows you to believe in yourself. Okay, so um, back to I'm a couple weeks in to this stockbroker thing, and I hear the people in the room around the room, these other stockbrokers, kind of joking about me. They're
Yeah.
laughing, they're giggling. Whenever I'm on the phone, they're like kind of laughing, they're giggling. And then I finally find out, I'm like, what's going on? Like, hey man, everyone's calling you sexy man or sexy voice. I'm like, why is that? He's like, because when, when you get on the phone, your voice changes and it's like this soft voice. You're not you're not going to sell anybody that way. They don't respect that. You have to have some tonality. So those guys, they started training me, and they taught me how to talk from my diaphragm instead of my throat.
What do you think that
And
was, David? What was the sexy man? Was that what do you think that was that you were trying to do? If you could
it
place it.
it wasn't me trying to do anything. It was just me not being trained.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to notice it.
I see.
However, if you were in a room with killers that have been that worked at top tier phone rooms, these guys were. So here's the thing with being a salesperson. A salesperson is nothing other than a underpaid actor. That's it. They're just underpaid actors. You have to get into character. And when you're on over the phone salesperson, it is your level of character's got to be top notch, because you have to have tonality.
No
You have
body
to
language.
talk from. You
Yeah.
don't have to have too much body language
Well, I'm
when you're over
saying
the
that you
phone.
don't have access to body language.
We
So
got
you
one
have to
sense.
you only
We got
got
one
one.
sense.
That's
Yeah.
it.
When
That's it.
you're
Yeah.
face to face, you got all the senses. Eyes, smell, you can do
Mhm.
everything. When you're on the
Mhm.
phone, it's one sense. So could you imagine making phone calls and having somebody give you $5,000 over the phone that they've never met you, or $100,000 over the phone from a cold call? Like, you
From a
got to
cold
be
call.
good to do that.
Yeah.
So
Oh
these
yeah.
guys were super sharp. I mean, if you would know a script that you would say, but these people will say they're not interested. There had to be a rebuttal. I can appreciate that. I respect that. The fact is, you're not interested because you don't know me. I've never made you any money in the market before. If I brought you in at 16 and got you out at 27 and showed you uh, an account balance north of $50,000, would you be saying I'm not interested? No, of course not. You have all these like things that are in your head that you're trained to do, so that you're fast and you can keep them on the phone thinking. And these guys were bulletproof.
They
They
were lightning.
sounded
Yeah.
their voices could cut through ice. I mean, they were solid, and they taught me how to do it. So they said, okay, you know what? Come in a half an hour early. We're going to train you on tonality, and we're going to train you on rebuttals, handling objections, and we're going to do this every morning until you can train the agents. And they did. They took their time with me. They trained me, and I went the longest in that firm without getting paid. My first 90 days, I didn't get a sale. I didn't get a
Or are you
sale.
making money for your family?
I wasn't. I wasn't. I was living off of savings.
Okay.
I had
That's an
three.
important point. So you were smart. You had savings. You didn't. This is another thing that I want to touch on, because sometimes people hear these stories, and you hear a lot about jumping ship, right? Like, oh, like, leave it all behind. It's like, no, you don't have to. I think there are a select few individuals that are capable of doing that. But when you have a wife and 3 kids at home, whatever decision you make has to be wise. So you didn't just jump industries with $0 in your account. You had okay, that's important. You had savings. Okay. We got to talk about, we got to mention that, because, you didn't just willy nilly. You had a plan in place. And I imagine, did you give yourself a timeline that you'd say, hey, I'll try this for 6 months and see how it goes, or not?
No,
In
no,
that
I
time.
I do believe in burning your ships. You have to burn your ships. But
Okay, tell
here's
me
the
about
thing,
that then.
like
Yeah.
let's go back to 2000. Let's go back to 2004 when I opened the automotive shop. That wasn't, I left the automotive dealership and I went on my own there. Except when I went on my own there, I had to put in $180,000 of my own money before I could even make a dollar, right? So I had $180,000 that I put down
Mm,
on equipment, bought equipment, put lifts in, put brake lathes in, tire machines, and that business, I went into it for a year. I never made any money in that business, and you're not going to make your money back in a business right away. I wasn't making money. I was making enough money to buy parts and keep people in. I'd get enough to make my mortgage and stuff like that. But at the end, I didn't make money off of
it
selling that
wasn't
business.
gross profit, right?
I literally handed the business over to somebody. I lost $180,000 on that deal and went back to the automotive shops. And then, we're talking 6 years later, I'm I'm back in the business for myself again, but I'm as a stockbroker, right? I'm 1099. I'm building my own book, and it's 90 days. And yeah, I'm burning through what I did have in savings. We got down to a point where, we didn't know how we were going to get groceries, and then it started to click for me. Boom. I started to get sales every day, sometimes 3 sales a day, and before you knew it, I was one of the highest grossing salespeople in the firm. um, I mean, it started to get really good. I started to figure it out. I started to get really good. I kept that work ethic going. I just grind and grind and grind, $500 a day, 64, conversations a day, a deal, 2 deals, 3 deals a day. I got to the point where I was really churning them out. But there was a learning curve there, and it was about 90 days to learn it. And yeah, there was a time where I was like, I gotta hang this up. And my
Mm,
wife looked at me and said, "Hey, Dave." And my wife never worked. She still didn't work. She goes, "Dave, we're almost burned through all of our savings. You're If you're going to give this up, you have to go get another job." It's like, why don't you just see it through? Just see
mm,
it through. We're
okay.
almost burned through our savings. Like, if you give up, you're not going to know if you can do this.
Mm,
And you know what? We need to make more money. Like, you're a technician. You have 3 kids and a stay-at-home wife. Like, we do good, but we need more, right? I'm like, yeah, we need more. It's tough in South Florida, and we've seen it get just tougher over the last since COVID. So last
yeah.
5 years, we've seen it get really, really tough. But
Yeah.
I made a lot of sacrifices to make sure I had a stay-at-home mother at home. I mean, that's sacrifice. You climbing the mountain by yourself is tough, but putting 3 kids
Yeah.
and a
Three.
wife on your
Right.
back
Right.
and
Right.
climbing the
Right.
mountain, that's a
Right.
real man. That's what real men do.
I want to acknowledge that as well, because there's 2 things I want to acknowledge. One, I want to acknowledge the learning curve. That's something that a lot of young adults, they don't see the learning curve. All they see is, I had a great coach that I worked with. I did a couple of his online programs. Fantastic coach. Read a couple of his books. Anyways, and his name is Rich Litvin. And what he talked about was the exponential curve. And he would say that, to use your mountain analogy, imagine that you're standing at the base of the mountain and all you see is the climb. You're still at the base. So you see nothing but this flat wall in front of you. If you want to imagine the mountain like as a wall. So when you're at zero, if we're imagining this as a graph, an exponential curve is very, 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 very flat. And then all of a sudden it spikes up. That's what an exponential curve does. So those 90 days, that learning curve, right? You're just at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then eventually you get to like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, but then all of a sudden 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, and it just goes up from there. A lot of young adults are scared of the curve because all they're seeing is this insurmountable obstacle in front of them, and they don't even have a taste of victory yet. But that is a trend. That's a meta trend. That's a trend that is present in every industry ever. It's present in most areas of life ever. But if you don't go through that, you're never going to make it to the top of the mountain. You have to be willing to grab your backpack, in your case, with 3 kids and a wife, and climb it, even though it's like scary. But if you don't go through that, you'll never make it to the summit. You'll never summit if you don't make it through that challenge. Never.
True. And the reason that you have to go through that curve is because you have to give your mind time to become this new character.
Mm,
In your mind, you have who you believe you are. You have your character already built up. But you want to go do this other thing, you have to design a new life for yourself. You have to
yeah.
design a new character. And it's going to take 90 days. It's going to take 90 hard days of brainwashing yourself to become this new character. Like, you know, I was the dyslexic kid that didn't like school, and I was going to go to the military because that was going to be just my route, or or I was going to go be a mechanic where I didn't have to deal with any of that. I could stay working on cars, make good money. I already knew it, right? It was already, so that was your I had to change my character.
Yes.
And I teach other salespeople the same thing. I say, hey, look, when you get into this, you have to pick a character, and you have to imagine yourself that character. If that's if
I
that's
like that.
Harvey from Suits, that's always been my character, Harvey from Suits. I imagine myself with this suit on, going up to the 100th floor of the building, being powerful. You have to
I
imagine
love that. I love that.
yourself.
Yeah, we call that embodiment, and you have to embody. See, I've always had a problem. I'll tell you this, David. I've had a problem with the phrase "fake it until you make it." However, because there's some connotations to that, but there's a lot of truth in that because
Lots,
you
lots.
have to, you know. So in the hero's journey, I learned this in mythology. The hero, okay, let's use Lion King as an example. Okay, so Simba is in Disney's The Lion King. Simba is the hero, but Disney played a very interesting move, and they had Rafiki. I don't know if you remember. Rafiki is
Monkey, he's the
he's the
monkey with
monkey,
the
but I someone in the comments will say it, but he's a specific type of monkey, and he's a mandrill. That's what he's called. He's a mandrill. Okay, so he plays the role of the sage, which is the guide, which is what Gandalf is to Frodo and to Bilbo, the wizard that shows up and has the wisdom. So he plays the sage, but he's also the fool because he's silly, he plays around, he's not afraid to make a fool of himself. The fool is the precursor to the hero. You have to be willing to be a fool in any domain in order for you to become the hero in anything. You have to be willing to fake it. You have to be willing to be a fool and submit yourself to the process. I don't know how this
Absolutely.
is going to go. I have no idea. I have no idea how to make a sales call. I have no idea about stocks. I have no ideas about how to close a sale, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to fake it. I'm going to embody this hero. I'm going to embody this character and bit by bit build my own identity centered around this figure. In your case, the character from Suits.
Yeah,
You have to be willing to do that. Otherwise, you'll never make it. So
I
you do
agree.
have to fake it. There is a truth in that.
It is truth. And what you're saying, like a lot of people feel like it sounds dirty saying fake it till you make it, but it's not. It's a really good thing because what you're doing is you're letting go of your ego when you say that. The
Mhm.
people that go fake it till you make it's terrible, you need to know everything. Those people are ego-driven people. They can't let go of their ego. They're not
It's
coachable.
pride. It's
It's
pride.
pride.
It's
It's
pride.
pride. And if you're going to be good at anything, you got to be coachable. Someone's got
Mhm.
to be able to coach you how to do it. You got to be that type of leader that asks people questions. You have some, let's just say my sales team. I have on my sales team. If I don't ask them questions, what kind of leader am I? Hey, how did you close that sale? What kind of leads are you using? You haven't so much success. Can you share this with me? As a leader, you need to be coachable, not just by people that you look up to, but the people that are with you. Because the best leaders in this world and in our timeline, they all hire smarter people than them and ask them questions. Steve Jobs would ask his people questions. Bill Gates asked his people questions. So those guys all faked it till they made it, including Elon Musk, all of them. Why? They dropped their ego. They got rid of their ego. They didn't know what they didn't know, and they hired everybody to teach them what they needed to know. And they acted like they did like those people until they became those people.
You know, we can we can take all those figures that you just mentioned and we can very clearly see that there are a lot of similarities and connections between them. And we can truly learn from them. We truly can.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter at this point, it doesn't matter whether or not let's talk to the person. Let's talk to the person who feels that they're at zero. There's a couple things there. You've got nothing to lose if you are at zero. This is what I tell, and I imagine you tell something similar to the new people that you hire, especially if they're younger. What do you have to lose? You're at zero anyway, you know. But when you're at zero, if you've got $0 in your bank account, you it's a paradox, and I'm going to explain what the paradox is. The paradox is you are zero. You have nothing financially. Let's say you're living with your parents. You're in your mom's basement, to use that example that's been, they beat it to death already. But let's say you're that person that you've got nothing going for you. Well, guess what? That also simultaneously means you have nothing to lose, but it also means you have one of the most precious resources that most people continually try to get more of. You've got a lot of free time, buddy. A lot of free time. So you have the ability, you have nothing to lose. Let's couple those two things together. You've got nothing to lose because you're at zero, but you have the most precious resource ever, and that's time. Let's take that time and let's make some money, baby. Let's build some skills and let's make some money, baby. You know? So you did that. You went through that journey and you started making money. What happened next? Let's continue from there.
Well, let's not forget, like, hey,
Yeah.
even though you're making money, don't think that every year or every month is a great month. You're just gonna have dry spells. Like, look,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
zero. Some days and some months and even some years, zero is great for me. Some years or some months, I'm negative. I've got debt, okay, and I don't have anything in the bank. And look, you can look back at some of the best of the best. Like you always hear the story from Donald Trump. He said, "Hey, I was driving in my limousine and I looked at this homeless guy and I said, man, he's got $900 million more than me." And his his girlfriend at the time goes, "What do you mean? I'm 900 million in debt. I got nothing." And he dug himself out, right? And a lot of these people
I didn't
do
know
that.
that
Like,
story. Oh wow.
yeah. So look, these some of these billionaires and multimillionaires, they look, they're day by day. Some days it's great, but they risk it all because they don't want to build somebody else's dream. They want to build their dream. You got a choice when you wake up in the morning. Are you going to work on building your dreams come true,
Someone
or are
else
you going to
or
work
someone
on
else's
building
dream.
someone else's dreams come true? And that was the thing that used to eat at me. Oh my goodness, eat at me something crazy. And even to this day, I'll risk it. I still risk it all. I'll some days, some months we're doing terrible. Some months we're just
Mm,
doing amazing. And the fact is, as long as you just keep on focusing on the positive, you're always gonna get there. I've got 4 kids now at this point, right?
wow.
And they all go to private school, so if you can imagine, those are like little mortgages in
That adds
themselves.
up.
Yeah, that adds
That
up.
adds up.
you know I've got 2 that are driving. That adds up. And it's you look, you just always have to raise your standards and raise your standards and raise your standards, and you'll make more, and you'll never think that you're making enough. You're never going to think that you're making enough. It's always never going to be enough. So you just have to always focus on chasing your dreams. So that guy that's sitting in his mom's basement,
Yeah.
that's at zero and thinks he's risking it all by learning a new trait to be a
Oh
salesperson or
yeah.
something. He's got everything to gain and nothing to lose. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't have he
Yeah.
doesn't have a mortgage that he's gonna be late on a payment for this month or next month. Like, who cares? And who cares if you are late for a month? You'll make it up next month. You just
Yeah.
keep on working. You're gonna have sleepless nights. If you're not living, man. You're not living. There's there's no sweet without the sour. You got to
Mm.
have those sour days. You got to have bad days. They're what make the good days so much better.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Because that's something I want to mention. I think it's important because I there's a lot of hype in what I like to call sometimes shiny object syndrome. I have that a lot
Yeah.
where you're like you see something new and you're like, "Oh, that looks neat." Like what if I go do that instead? And that's another danger. That's another danger because I see that a lot sometimes is that the people that they let's say they don't get through the 90 days of discomfort and they're on day 45. And typically something starts to happen on day 45. You start to get bored. You're like, oh, it's same old, same old. I still haven't made $1. Oh, but Sally's making money doing that, or John's doing that. What if I go do what Sally does? What if I go do what John does? Can we talk about the boring days of entrepreneurship a little bit? The challenges of the boredom and what happens when you get hit with that angst. It's like,
Let's do
like,
that.
let's do that.
That's you know
Yeah.
what? The boring is you're doing the same thing over and
Mm,
over and over, and you're like, I got to go do that again. Guess what? Those are the things that make you the most money.
okay.
The boring things are what make you the money. The exciting things don't make you the money. Now, they will if you do enough of them. Like
Mm,
going to the BNI meeting, you know, that can be boring, but it can also be exciting because it's a sales call where
mm,
you're around your group of friends. But it's a sales call. It's just a different type of sales call. So it seems fun, but it's the boring stuff.
mm.
But you just do the boring stuff over and over again. That's where you get paid the most. The boring stuff is where you get paid the most. So when you're getting yourself thinking about, oh, I want to go do this other fun, exciting thing, tell yourself that you have to do enough boring things to go do that. It has to make sense financially because it's not going to make me money. The boring things make me money. And then, there's nothing wrong with bringing new exciting things in your business, but it has to make financial sense. It really does. If you're gonna just get rid of the boring thing that's been making you money to go chase the shiny thing, you're gonna go broke real quick.
Yeah. And I've seen that in my business a lot. I'm a very passion driven person. I have a lot of challenges with the boring stuff. I truly do, you know? And I have bit by bit hunkered down, you know? And when I started to hunker down, when I started to say, this is something I want to emphasize. When I started saying no to certain things and started focusing primarily on my bread and butter, and like, okay, what is the identity of this company? What are the four main things that we do? No more than, I try to recommend no more than five, because once you start offering more than five things, no one knows what the hell you do, you know? If you can clearly articulate 3 to 5 main offerings, people can understand that, you know? So walk me through the founding of USA Wealth Builders. Like, how did that start? What are you up to? What are you doing there?
Well, we kind of got to back up a
I'm
little bit.
sorry. If
That
Okay, let's back up. Yeah,
let's
if I'm
back
getting
up.
ahead,
So
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
let's back up. So I'm doing the commodity sales and the stockbroker. I'm mainly in commodity sales at this point, and the place I'm working at closes down. The
Okay.
guy, so when you're doing commodities, at this point I'm doing commodities full time. When you clear a trade, you clear it through a clearing house, something called a clearing house. So we were an IB, like an independent broker, and we traded our everything through a clearing house. That clearing house was the guy was stealing the money. Yeah, he there's a special, it's called American Greed on him, and basically he was just doing a copy and paste and stealing the money and
Oh,
saying
so
that
this
there
guy,
was
oh,
real.
this guy is famous then for what he
His
did.
name's Russell Wassendorf. Russell Wassendorf, and the name of the clearing firm was Peregrine Financial Group. Peregrine
Oh,
Financial Group, PFG. Anyways, one day I go into work and they say, "Hey, look, everything's kind of seized here. Best case scenario, your clients may get 10% or 10 cents on the dollar."
holy.
Anyways, we all kind of had a discussion, and everyone kind of talked about what are they going to do, where are they going to go. So we all kind of switched things, and I got a job, being a salesperson for for a seafood company, and I would jump on an airplane going to like a major retailer's headquarters and get them to sign on the dotted line to bring in this this fish from Canada, salmon from Canada. And I did that. I did that for a little while, and then one day, uh, where I was living, the landlord said, "We're gonna double your rent." And I said, "Wow, okay." My wife started freaking out. I just went and got my licenses all squared away again in financial services, and um, I did the financial services from like 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, and while I was running the seafood business as well.
So everything, and this is important because everything came crashing down. This is another very pivotal point in the adventure, in the hero's journey. There's usually a point, and we see this in film, we see this all the time, right? We see this in media where things are going well, right? The hero, the character is building skills, he's building his contacts, he's building his everything. Everything's going well, but the villain shows up. In this case, this Russell Wasseldorf, whatever
Wassendorf.
whatever the hell his name
Uh,
is. Sorry. So this guy's like the main villain in the story, right? And he shows up and he basically just everything comes crashing down, you know? And you've got to pick yourself up. You've got to pick up the pieces and go ahead and go on a new adventure. So I need to emphasize that because it's not like it's an upwards trend. You know, there is a
No,
point where you're gonna
it's a
come
roller
boom.
coaster. I told you it was a roller
You said
coaster.
it was a roller coaster. This is
Yeah,
a great podcast, man. What a great story. Legit. I'm serious. So
yeah.
everything comes crashing down. You pivot, right? So you pivot. You start working for this seafood company. The other minor villain in the story doubles your rent, you know, and then you're like, okay, well, gotta go back to my, gotta go back to what I was doing before. Score my licenses away. So that's a your life story very and very much mirrors the adventure story, because most stories there's a point where the hero goes back to the familiar. He goes back home, but this is giving me goosebumps. But when the hero comes back home, he's wiser. He has experience, he has grit, he has more skills. So you come back home, but you don't come back the same, you come back different. So you go back into the familiar a little bit, you build with your licenses, and then what happens? Let's continue.
Yeah,
This is a
so
great
so
story,
I,
man.
I
Yeah.
the way I get hooked up with the seafood company anyways is
Yeah.
one of my kids, I told you my kids are going to private school. So one of
Yeah.
my kids,
Yeah.
we become really friendly with their parents, and they're still friends to this day. I can't say enough about this family. I just love them.
Yeah.
And they moved to Canada, and they're away from us, and they invite us to come up, and we're going to go skiing. We're going to take the kids skiing, see snow. That's great. That's a big thing for people that live in Florida to go see snow. So we go up there. We're spending the week with them, and he's running this seafood company up in Canada, and he's like, "Hey man, um, you ever thought about leaving what you're doing and coming over here? We need a guy in Florida that can build the business. Like your sales is, it would just, I think it would just work great. I think you could just kill it. It would be face to face. You wouldn't have to be over the phone, and we'll give you a credit card. Just book tickets, go to the wherever you need to go and get it done for us." So that's kind of like how I got the in on that job. It's not
Okay.
like I just knew the guy and I said, "Hey, I get into that line of
I want to
work."
sell salmon.
Yeah, it was salmon. So I do that. I do that for a while, and then, like you said, the the landlord raised the rent. But look,
Interesting.
it needed to happen because what happened is in the area that I live in, soon as COVID happened, all the homes turned into Airbnbs. And then if there was any
Ah,
homes available, the homes were going for a ridiculous price. Rent was through the roof. I mean, so you know what? I'm glad she didn't just kick me out and because I wouldn't have found anything.
I see.
So she doubled my rent, and it was okay. Whatever. I figured out a way to do it. I started doing the financial services over the phone again, and I found a good way to do it. I was very successful at it, and basically I'm running two jobs. I'm doing the seafood stuff during the seafood hours, and then at night
I-
I'm I'm in my office just making calls and closing deals over the phone for my own little business. And I do that for a while. I do that for about a year. I'm telling my wife, I'm like, I got to go do this full time again because we could just make so much more money than I'm doing in the seafood. The seafood is not scalable. I can only do so much. And she's like, "Well, do whatever you want to do." And then lo and behold, I end up getting fired.
Oh,
The
really?
CEO, the CEO of the seafood company, his butt's on the chopping block. I'm kind of like I'm like the number one sales guy on the team, and he just blames some of the lack of growth on me, and
Wait,
he just
is
shielded
this the
himself.
same guy? Is the CEO the same guy who gave you the job?
No, no.
Okay,
This
okay, okay, okay,
the guy that gave me the job. He had just gotten fired, like a little bit before me, and
okay.
the CEO of the company he was under a lot of pressure to make things change. So he's kind of getting rid of people underneath of him to shield himself from basically getting fired, right? You don't
Mhm.
know that at the time. You find out after,
You
right?
find
And
out after
so,
the fact.
yeah, because what ends up happening a couple months after I get let go, the CEO is fired, and
Oh
then
shoot.
the guy that was the comptroller calls me and says, "Hey, man, can you come back to work here?" I said, "Well, you guys fired me." It's like, "Well,
Yeah.
that that CEO did that to kind of cover his
Cover his.
tracks, and
Yeah.
we all know that." So the owner asked, like, what happened to you? Because the sales went down. They said, "Well, what happened to these sales?" "Well, you fired that salesperson. He was your biggest producer." They're like, "Well, why did we fire him?" And they said, "Well, there's not really a reason why the CEO just fired him." And they're like, get him back." And they called me, and just told them no thing.
Okay, that's important. So that 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 can be a shiny object for people because you know that, right? So going back to the known, you knew about it, you could have gone back, and there's also, I want to talk a little bit about the temptation to ego, because but you're the best, you're number one, you were the top producer, so it's like sometimes they'll try to, this is the dangerous thing about ego and pride, is that they'll try to sell it to you by trying to tempt your lower pleasures, like, oh, but you're the best, like you'll do great at it, and but you said no to that. That's important.
I I already worked.
Yeah.
I already walked that path,
Mm.
and it wasn't easy to say no because I liked those people that I was working with, and I believe me, I loved what I was doing. I really did.
You really liked
It
it.
wasn't like I was working for a company that I didn't want to work for. I was aligned with that company. Like, we
Mm.
were aligned, and they were kind of like a startup, which was really exciting. Later on, um, you know, I it just I had already walked that path. I'm a pretty disciplined person. I'm a type of guy that will make his mind up and go for it, and I'll put the chips on the table. And I know, like, things fall apart and they break, but guess what? At the end of the day, it all works out. You could go broke, you could go in credit card debt. That really doesn't mean anything. What are you going to run around and cry and be regret going in credit card debt, or having a bankruptcy? No, you will regret not trying. Like, I'm going to try, put it all in and try, because what who would I be at like 80 years old going, "Oh, well, I could have did that. I could have did that. I used
Yeah.
to be a
I
salesman." That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not me. Like, why,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, the pain of discipline is so much easier than the pain of regret.
They did a survey of the top 5 things that people regret. It was a meta study, beautiful study. And they found the top 5 things. I don't remember all 5 off the top of my head. I remember a couple of them, at least 2. One was not spending enough time with people that you love. That's a
Yeah.
huge one. That's a huge one. 2 was not pursuing what you really wanted to do. Those were 2 of the 5, because those are the ones that resonate the most with me.
Mm.
So that's why I remember those 2. And I'm seeing that now, man. Because I'm like, you gotta fight. I have a 5-month-old. I have a wife. I'm thinking, how much do I want to work, and how much do I want to see that kid's first, listen to his first word, watch him when all of a sudden now he's grabbing objects, he's the next little silly thing he does. Like, I don't want to miss that stuff, you know? Um, and I have a lot of respect for the people that sometimes they can't be in that position, because I know life is difficult sometimes. Sacrifices have to be made. But I also don't want to be on my deathbed. It's like, oh, like Morrow provided for his family, but he did stuff he really hated, and he was miserable. Like, I don't want to be that guy, I don't want to
Yeah,
be that guy,
you have to be aligned with what you're doing. You have to be
Yeah,
aligned
man.
with what you're doing. I and
Yeah.
I'm like that too. I'm a family man, and um, you know, in the financial services that I do right now, mainly is life insurance. And the reason that I love life insurance so much is because I know that for a man, Like on your t-shirt, there's a shield and there's a sword.
Hell yeah.
For a man, the best shield that they can have is life insurance. Because if they
Mhm.
die early, their legacy gets to keep on going on. The only reason we work so hard in sales or in business is to build a legacy.
Mm.
And one thing that we can't predict is life. Life throws curveballs. You could get sick, you could become disabled, you could die. And if you don't have a plan in place or a shield in place, you're vulnerable. So that's one of those things for me. Family is everything. I love my wife so much. We talk about all the time that it's so important to pick the right person, because when a family goes through divorce, it's almost like there's a death in the family,
Yeah.
because are children from a family that has a capable father and a capable mother are completely different than a child from a divorced family.
Yeah.
It's just there's a little there's just things missing. There's things missing. And for me, being in life insurance, it's a family business. It's an emotional business. It's a business about caring about somebody, because nobody wakes up and says, "I want to have some life insurance." Someone has to kind of educate you on it. Someone's got to care to tell you about it. How much should I have? These kind of things, they're personal questions. And you that's one of the things for me. My business and what I do every day aligns with my beliefs.
So USA Wealth Builders. So you is the last piece of the story that I want to connect is I imagine there's a connection between the hours that you work between 4 to 8 after you were fired from the salmon sales job, and then was that the inception of USA Wealth Builders? Is that where it came out of? From
Yeah,
those 4 hours? Okay, okay. So you're kind of like Batman and Spider-Man, because Spider-Man delivers pizza during the days, but then he's rescuing New York City at night. Batman is billionaire Bruce Wayne during the day, but at night he was, fighting crime and beating up the Joker. So basically, your masked identity ended up becoming your superhero identity ended up becoming the main identity, and now you're doing full time what you truly are meant to do. That's what I'm getting from this. So now you're you're providing financial freedom to people through life insurance, through education, and you're doing but also I want you to talk about the men that you mentor and the team that you're building. I think that's one of the last things we can talk about as we start to wrap up, because I also know that this business is also empowering others as well. And you're
yeah,
helping young men also build this same thing, but for their families too.
right, right. So you through this podcast, you kind of hearing a little bit about my philosophy on family. I believe in a traditional style family. I believe a man needs to be able to fix things. You don't have to be a ASE certified mechanic, but you got to be able to change some light bulbs,
Come on.
go out there, use some tools, be capable. My whole thing
That's
is I
important.
want to raise capable men. Okay, so
Mm,
my children, they're very capable. Even my girl, capable. I teach you how to change the inner tube on your tire one time. Watch how we do it. We're gonna do it one time, because the next time you're doing it.
you're gonna do
I
it by
teach you
yourself.
how to put the chain back on your bike one time, because you're gonna do it next time. You're not gonna call me. I'm gonna teach you how to change the tires or the brakes on your car one time, so you can do it next time. Okay? So I teach my children how to be capable. The guys that come into the business, what's the one thing that they're all lacking is confidence. They're not
Mm,
confident in themselves. And it just seems like this generation, a lot of these young men, they're just looking for someone to help them
yeah.
become competent, capable. And that's what I do. And the way I do that is I teach them how to use tonality. I teach them how to posture. Teach them these things. These are little things inside of sales. I teach them that because not everybody got to move every 6 months and had to go make new friends, and not everybody ever, had to make $500 a day every day, and to get no clients for 90 days. So I just take them take them through the path I went through, all the mistakes I made. I show them how to, I kind of show them how to shortcut who I've become. I teach them visualization. I think visualization is one of the biggest things. I teach them how to visualize themselves as the new character they need to become.
Mm.
I teach them the skills in sales. I teach them the skills in tonality. I teach them the scripts and the rebuttals. And once I armor them with that
Mm.
and I get them to get a couple of sales, they have confidence. Once they get that confidence and they're around other young men like them, it becomes a tribe. And there's hierarchies inside the tribe. And those things naturally work themselves out. And you know what? I keep myself very physically fit. I like to fast once in a while, just extra stress on the body, extra
Oh yeah.
discipline. I like to get to the gym. These young guys love doing that stuff too, man. They love it. They love the fast. They loved it. They loved the 75 hard from Andy Frisella, this challenge. So
Tell
we
me
do
about that.
that.
What's that?
Yeah, it's just where you go on a strict diet for 75 days. You do an outdoor workout for 45 minutes. You do an indoor workout for 45 minutes. Well, it doesn't have to be indoor. You could do two outdoor
Two
workouts, but they
outdoors.
have they have to be both 45 minutes. They can't be back to back. They have to be separated. You
Okay.
have to take a daily accountability picture of yourself in the mirror every day. You have to drink a gallon of water every day, and you have no cheat days for 75 days. If you miss any one of those steps, you have to go back to day one.
Hell yeah.
And it's
Hell yeah.
it's a mental. It's not just a physical challenge. It's a mental challenge.
Hell yeah.
And once they can do that, they can communicate, because the level of sales that I teach is high level communication. So I teach them how to talk to people like a boss.
Mm.
You get that, you 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 can go talk to any woman that you want. And I'm a true believer that, hey, it's nice to have the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, the big house in the water, but I think this new generation of guys, they're much different. They're very conservative. I think the new flex for them is going to be that beautiful family, that stay-at-home wife. Having 3 or 4 kids is going to be important to this generation coming in right now. It's very different than the generation that's in their 30s right now. A
Yeah.
lot of those people are extremely soft and weak. And
Yeah.
I think this newer generation is is looking to be
Yeah.
hard. And there's a saying, um, hard times create strong men.
Yeah.
Strong men create weak times. You ever heard that?
Oh yeah. Say it for all of us to hear. I love it. Say it.
Yeah, yeah, I just did. I did.
Yeah. Yeah,
So hard,
and then there's the yeah, there's a cycle, right? Cuz it's like hard men it's hard times make strong men.
strong
Strong
men
men
make
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 good
good
times
times.
make weak men, and
Yeah,
then it starts all over again,
it
right? That's the
does. It
cycle.
does. It's
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
is the
yeah, yeah.
cycle. That is the
Yeah.
cycle. So,
Yeah.
I think you're you're just all like, I think you're seeing the kids that are graduating high school right now. Those kids.
Yeah.
This is a it's a much different group. I think they're striving for spirituality. You see them going to church.
Yeah.
You see them being very more on the conservative side. You don't see them falling for all this worship the government BS.
Right.
Okay, so years ago, the people went to church, they worshiped God, and if they got in trouble financially, the church would step up and help them out. And then the 60s and 70s, and welfare comes into play, and they kind of, everyone bashes spirituality and church on Hollywood, so that you'll believe that the only person you should be uh, you know the only person you should be worshiping is the US government, which I think is BS.
That's a huge
you
mistake.
know yeah, you
Huge.
need to you need to look up to your father. Your father should be someone that you look up to. The church should be somewhere you could go trust, that's got your back.
Hell yeah.
So that's kind of my philosophy on that.
I I'm always vulnerable. I'll be a little bit vulnerable. I I fit the category because the struggles that I've had as a man were due to the high levels of comfort that I had as a child.
Mm,
Because I and glory to God and glory to many things and people that were able to guide me along the way because I'm 33. And so I have friends that, and it's not about comparing, but yeah, I have a lot of peers that are really struggling, man. A lot of these people, men, because they're men, they're in their 30s,
sure.
but they're struggling, dude. They're struggling. And I have my struggles, and I've been very open about my struggles on the podcast, and the temptations that I had with playing too many video games and other stuff. Everything has to have a proper place. And so the temptation of an easy life and the comfort and just drowning yourself in junk food and drowning
Your
yourself in
Can I
pleasure,
say this
and
for
yeah,
you for a second? Your
please,
generation, that
yeah,
33 year old,
yeah,
you guys were in the pinnacle of the virtual world, the
yeah,
pinnacle of video games, the
yeah,
pinnacle of free porn. Like, you guys
all of
were
that.
like, this was your time. Your time was the easiest time. And it was just, the video games were the best. I mean, the internet was rocking and rolling, man. You
And
could
social
communicate.
media was
You
everything
could,
was up and
yeah,
coming, man.
it was up and
Yeah,
coming, so you guys could do all your communication through that. You missed out on some of that face-to-face stuff that a lot of us did. And hey, quite frankly, COVID came in when you guys were getting into the workforce.
you are
So
getting
it's
into
like,
the workforce. Yeah,
it's really screwed your generation. And
yeah,
again, that's why I say that generation's a little bit soft. I
yeah.
come from the Gen X, where we didn't have internet. The internet didn't come out until much later. Cell phones weren't a thing. I mean, when I was a senior in high school, if you had a cell phone, you were rich, but not many people had cell phones. I didn't have my first cell phone until I was like 20, because I came in.
Yeah.
I have the generation. I got the technology young enough, but I grew up in a time when it was analog too.
Yeah.
You came up in the time of peak technology.
Peak digital age, bro.
Peak
Yeah.
digital. You see people right now detoxing from digital. People are going to get flip phones again because they don't even want to deal
Because
with
they
all the
don't want
apps.
it. They
They're
don't
trying
want
to
the smartphone.
detox out of it. They're like, I want to get this phone's making me soft. I can't even read a map, like,
Get rid of map. Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. That's true,
you
though.
hear
That's
that.
very
Yeah, you
true.
hear that. Like, I don't know how to use a compass. I don't use a map. Well, get rid of this. And they're
Get rid of the
they're
damn
getting back
phone.
into that.
Yeah. Last question, David. This is God. This is a great episode, man. I've had so much fun. I really don't want it to end, but all good things must come to an end. What do you find beautiful? What's beautiful to you? What are your hobbies, creative pursuits? What do you see that it's like, that's a beautiful thing, man. Yeah.
Man, really good. Um, this may be because I didn't have a father early on, but what's beautiful to me is being a capable man. It's
Mm.
beautiful to me to have a family. I mean, they're precious to me. And most dads will say that, but I'm a family man through and through. I'll work 7 days a week. I don't care. A lot of times I get to work here from my house, so my kids hear me. I'm here.
You're
Um,
present.
you know, I'm present. And whatever my kids want to get into as a hobby, guess what? That becomes my hobby. They want to get into boating. I bought a boat. They wanted to get into fishing. Guess what? We got the
Get some
fishing gear.
fishing
We're
rods.
we're we're fishermen. We're fishermen now. They
Yeah. We're
wanted to
fishermen now. Yeah.
yeah, they wanted to get into to hunting or skeet shooting. I become a skeet shooter with them.
Hell yeah.
They want to go duck hunting. I become a duck hunter with them. So I only get you only probably get about 18 years of that with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so immerse yourself into what they think is beautiful, and that's what I think is beautiful. And then when they're out of the house, they're not going to want much to do with me anymore. But I'll get to look back on that and say, man, it was really cool what we did. We did those things. So I don't go and say, hey, these are my hobbies. This is what I like to do.
Okay.
Hey, what do you guys want to do? My wife and I don't go on, many vacations without them just because we want to make sure that we cherish those times with them.
How old are your kids now?
So my oldest is graduating high school this year. His last day of school was yesterday. He's
Oh wow.
18. Yep. And then my next oldest is 16, new driver. And then I have a 14-year-old. Those are all three boys.
Those are your three
And
boys.
then I have a 7-year gap, and I have a little girl, and right now she's 7 years old.
Oh,
Yep.
that's
So 7,
precious, man.
14, 16, 18.
Wow. So you space. So you had your kids young then? Your first kid?
My first child, I was 27.
Perfect. That's a good age
Yeah.
because you were like at the yeah, you were at the peak of manhood, you know? That's good. That's a good time
I
to
don't
have
know, man.
your
I think I'm at the peak now.
well,
I think the older
there's
you get,
research there's research now that suggests that actually the peak of manhood is actually around 35, they say. You know,
yeah.
because they
Well,
used to
you
say, yeah. I
in
mean,
business,
there's
they say
yeah.
they say in business you don't really hit your peak until your 50s, and I
Oh,
think
for money, yeah. Well, for money, yeah,
well,
yeah. Yeah.
but I think like business is the ultimate sport. I mean, it is the
Yeah.
ultimate sport. It is.
Yeah, that's it.
Nothing takes a stronger mindset than business. Nothing. Athletes have really good, strong mindsets. People in the military, really good, strong mindsets. When they get into business, it's really tested. You
I
get, just
imagine.
just go just go just go buy a book from David Goggins or Jocko Wilkin. These are
Yeah,
elite, elite Navy SEALs, and they're now business people,
and they're elite businessmen too. Yeah.
and they'll tell you the business mindset's
Jocko is
second to none.
yeah, Jocko, I read a lot of his stuff. Jocko
Yeah,
is Jocko is the real deal. Jocko
he's
is
the man. Especially anything on leadership, he's probably one of the best right now of our time.
yeah. He's
I think.
definitely a jewel. Man. David, I really enjoyed this. I truly believe and I know that you provided a tremendous amount of value for anyone that listens to this, but I think particularly for young men that are searching. And you don't my father my father would always say to me, we speak three languages in our household: Italian, Spanish, and English. And it was always a running joke when I was a kid because I would never want to find anything. I never want to search. And he would always tell me, busca y encontrarás, search and you will find. And so you have to search, man. You can't find anything unless you're willing to search. How can people find out more about you? How can people connect with you? Or could they learn more about you and your business and connect with you?
Sure. So my website is usawealthbuilder.com. That's where you can learn more about my business, and you can follow me on social media. You can message me on social media. I'll get back to you. My social media handle for just about everything is my name. My For Instagram, it's David B Frederickson. For YouTube, it's David B Frederickson. For Facebook, I have two, David Frederickson and David B Frederickson. TikTok, David B Frederickson. So yeah, you can follow me on any of those, and just regular David Frederickson on LinkedIn. Reach
Yeah,
out to me, message me if you need something. I'm always happy to give any advice or help if I can.
That's great, David. Thank you. You're a true man of value and a true man of giving and inspiring others. You've been, no, truly, and I mean this. You this inspired me quite a bit, and you fired me up. You got all the metaphors out. You got all the hero stuff. Like you definitely called forth from me a lot. So I truly enjoyed this. Thank you so much for coming on, David.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, everyone, do all the stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. Definitely reach out to David if he sparked something in you. He's a great man, great father, great businessman. And until next time, remember this: every step of your life is an adventure, and you're the own hero. You're the hero of your own story. All right, take care, everyone. Bye, David.